All right, guys, so we got an interesting story that came out yesterday about a commander in Space Force who just was relieved of his duties because he wrote a book about how Space Force and the military is going woke. Okay, it's going woke, right? And guys, we've all knew that the military is, going woke. Okay, they're including more, diversity trainings. They're relaxing certain standards that has historically been a part of the military. They're funding sex change operations for transgender folks. They're doing a whole lot of things to try to be more inclusive, quote unquote. Okay, and this is just par for the course. As we've seen, they even certain intelligence agencies like the FBI and the CIA, they're also going woke as well, right? The whole country is essentially going woke. Okay, and behind this wokeness is the framework of looking at the country and history and our institutions through the framework of critical race theory. Now, this book that the Space Force officer wrote directly targeted the Marxist ideology behind critical race theory, and for that he was fired. Okay, so let's read a little bit more about this, as quite honestly, guys, I mean, this may have boosted this commanding officer's career because of this happening. So let's read a little bit more here. A commander in the United States Space Force was apparently relieved from his post after appearing on a podcast to promote his book, which asserts a neo-Marxist agenda is transforming military culture and policy. Lieutenant General Stephen Whiting, Space Operations Commander, relieved Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Lohmeier of command of the 11th Space Warning Squadron, Buckley Air Force Base, Colorado, May 14th, due to a loss of trust and confidence in his ability to lead, the Space Force said in a statement to the Washington Examiner. Quote, this decision was based on public comments made by Lieutenant Colonel Lohmeier in a recent podcast. Lieutenant General Whiting has initiated a command-directed investigation on whether these comments constituted prohibited partisan political activity. Lohmeier self-published Irresistible Revolution, Marxism's Goal of Conquest and the Unmaking of the American Military this week. The book, according to the description, explores the impact of a neo-Marxist agenda and the manner in which the Black Lives Matter movement, anti-racism, postmodernism, and political correctness affect the national security of the United States. Lohmeier said that he had informed his supervisors, public affairs staff, and lawyers for the military about the book prior to publication, but it was not subject to pre-publication review. Department of Defense Directive 1344.10 prohibits active duty personnel from engaging in partisan political activities. Service members are, however, permitted to express their personal opinions on political candidates and issues in their personal capacity and when not in uniform. Lohmeier denied intending to participate in partisan politics. Quote, my intent never has been to engage in partisan politics. I have written a book about a particular political ideology, Marxism, in the hope that our Defense Department might return to being politically nonpartisan in the future, as it has honorably done throughout history, he told military.com. The Air Force Academy graduate appeared on the podcast Information Operation last week to publicize the book, in which he criticized Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's diversity and inclusion agenda. I don't demonize the man, but I want to make it clear to both him and every service member, this agenda, it will divide us. It will not unify us, Lohmeier said. I 100% agree with that. Okay, the critical race theory agenda that is being pushed on our schools, is being pushed on our institutions, is being pushed everywhere across the country, is used to divide. It really is. Okay, I've talked about this before in more detail in other videos, but he is 100% right. And I think that he has the right to write about this and to talk about this. He wants to talk about it. But apparently, to the military, right, those people in Space Force Command, they don't think that he should be writing about this. They don't think he should be talking about this. And they don't see this as okay. So that's why they had to give him the axe. Okay. So let's read a little bit more here. Austin initiated a 60-day force-wide extremism stand down to determine how to best root out extremism for the military after the Capitol riot on January 6th. Quote, there were members, sadly, of the active duty force participating in espousing these radical beliefs. Pentagon spokesman John Kirby said, quote, we don't know the full breadth and the depth of it. Okay, so this is funny because after January 6th, everybody wants to talk about we need to find more people like the insurrectionists on January 6th. We need to root this out of this country. This is so dangerous. Now, keep in mind, guys, this happened one time. Everybody has said that this is bad, okay? But it happened once. And this is why I try to tell people about that event and why I don't like that it happened. Because it really did give the left an excuse to go whole hog on a narrative that white supremacy is the biggest domestic terror threat to this country. Okay, it just did. It gave them everything they needed. This is why people that try to excuse what happened, I'm just like, yeah, this hurt the right, right? This hurt Trump. It hurt the right. It hurt the whole movement. It derailed the whole movement because it literally gave social media, the liberal media, it gave government, it gave everybody an excuse to go after those on the right because of what happened. That's all it did. But it's funny because, again, like I said, guys, that happened one time. But yet, the Black Lives Matter event and the protests and the destruction that we saw that happened all last year, again, that happened throughout the summer. It happened throughout the whole year. Way more destruction and lives were lost from that event than anything having to do with what happened at the Capitol that day. Okay, but for whatever reason, we have to target people like those that were there at the Capitol event. But no, we don't need to target those who has been destroying the country and burning down cities and businesses basically for a whole year straight. Matter of fact, no, we need to actually teach ideology that they agree with. We need to teach that ideology. Okay? We need to teach the things that motivate them to cause destruction. Again, tell me how this makes sense. The transformation of the military going woke is clearly political. Okay? It is clearly a way for them to try to appeal to those on the left and to appeal to the woke movement, while also at the same time parroting this lie that somehow white supremacy is the biggest threat to this country. And they do this based off one event. Okay? But again, they ignore everything having to do with what happened all last year and all the damage and destruction caused for that. That's not a threat to this country, even though we've seen the damage and what's currently still going on, right? Portland, city's been destroyed. Don't worry about that. Not a big deal, right? These people that follow this Marxist ideology, don't worry about it. They're not a threat. Matter of fact, we should teach the same things that they believe in. Again, it's really ridiculous. Lohmeier said he was asked to train his troops with extremism training and was given a 70-page booklet of talking points. The lieutenant commander said the booklet opened with the Capitol riot and included examples of white nationalists that have been caught at some point in the last decade and punished for it and kicked out of the military or a radical Islamic terrorist. Quote, the diversity and inclusion and equity industry and the trainings we were receiving in the military is rooted in critical race theory, which is rooted in Marxism. True, right? I've already explained how this works. There is a connection between critical race theory and Marxism. Nobody can contest that, okay? The precursor to critical race theory is critical legal studies, which comes from critical theory, which is definitely Marxism, right? Critical theory is Marxism. It's an offshoot of Marxism. So yes, critical race theory does have roots that come from Marxism. Nobody can debate that, right? That's just basic stuff. The Space Force Lieutenant Colonel also criticized spokespeople at the Defense Department for saying the military has too many white pilots amid a pilot shortage. Kirby denied making that claim. However, the Air Force has proposed a plan to increase diversity in the ranks of its pilots, which includes recruiting, retaining, and removing barriers for minorities and women to become pilots. So basically, the rest of this article just talks about how Lohmeier had went on a podcast to try to talk about how this is dividing the military and, pushing, the idea that the United States is a white supremacist nation and stuff like that. Extremist views and how conservative views are being pushed out, right? They're being labeled as extremists. Now, what's interesting is that after this came out, right? this man's book became a bestseller on Amazon. It's actually number 6 right now. Okay, here's the book. It is pretty funny because when it comes to the military firing this man, honestly, it might have been the best thing to happen to him in terms of actually getting his message out. Okay, now because the military has fired him for this, he's going to be embraced by the right. He's probably going to get some type of YouTube channel, his own podcast. He's going to get a whole bunch of people following him, especially, you know, former military folks that are going to be listening to him and his opinions in regards to how the military is going woke. Okay? And not only that, again, he has a bestseller and he's going to make money off of it. And guys, let's take a look at the reviews real quick because it's going to tell you everything you need to know about this book and probably how successful it's going to be, right? If you look at the reviews, 64% give it 5 stars. 31% give it 1 star, right? That just goes to tell you how the public is responding to this book. Okay, let's read the 1-star reviews here because they're actually pretty hilarious. It says, thinly veiled intellectual veneer for white male grievance and McCarthy-style fear-mongering. 1 star. Garbage, his commanding officer just canned him for writing this nonsense and alternate reality. Terrible take on America's history and race relations. Racist and ignorant misunderstanding of history and anthropology. The ravings of a lunatic should be categorized as either satire or fiction. Dangerous right-wing propaganda masquerading as a chilling expose primer for domestic terrorists. Oh my God, this is hilarious. This is hilarious. And then if you look at the 5-star reviews here, it says an outstanding rebuttal to critical race theory from a frontline U.S. military officer. I lived in the USSR. Hard truths, professionally made plain. Courageous author, important and timely. Everyone should read this. Brave and powerful book, much needed right now. Must read intellectual armor for current assault on our liberties from repackaged communism. Yeah, so this book right here is going to do numbers. Okay, it's already number 6, right? So it is the 6th best-selling book on Amazon. Okay, 6th best-selling book on Amazon. He's gonna be fine, and he hasn't even made his rounds on TV yet, on Fox News, on all the conservative channels. He will be taken care of by the conservative community. Okay, now guys, it is a shame that the military is going woke and that they fired this Space Force officer for this, but at the end of the day, he will be fine. And I think that this is an example of how cancel culture is a double-edged sword. Okay, because it seems like those who get canceled, if you're big enough, if your story goes big enough, you tend to benefit from it. Okay, like, you know, for example, with the My Pillow guy, right? He's benefiting from that. You know, Steven Crowder kind of benefits from it. That police officer that mocked LeBron James, he raised like $500,000. Like, again, I have no doubt in my mind that this Space Force officer will be fine. He'll start a podcast. You know, he'll start a YouTube channel. He'll do something in which, you know, his career will go to a whole nother level because of him trying to expose the military. And ultimately, this is going to make his message go even further, right? I can imagine there's so many people that are probably ex-military that are going to want to listen to what he has to say about this subject because it's important, okay? And the military going woke has been, you know, a very touchy subject for people on the right, in terms of what happened with Tucker Carlson and how Tucker Carlson criticized the military for being woke and the military went after him for it. So, you know, the military openly goes out to Tucker Carlson. You can imagine that one of their own officers, if they come out and write a book on the military going woke and the Marxism that's being promoted in the military, obviously they're going to can the guy. Okay. But at the end of the day, you know, although I don't agree with it, I do think that he will be fine. I think that this is an example of how sometimes when you get canceled, you know, people benefit from it. It just makes you bigger. It makes your message louder. And I think a lot of people are going to buy his book and going to read his book because of this. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.